Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. When I'm in the bigger room, I need to bow to 5 directions. So now I need to do 3, so I'm like 40% more efficient than usual. So my name is Meng. I'm the Jolly Good Fellow of Google. It says so on my business card. And as usual, everything in my life started as a joke. So this thing started as a joke as well, which is the highest ranking engineer in Google is called a Google Fellow. And I made a joke. I was like, why be a Google Fellow when you can be a Jolly Good Fellow? And then, it got stuck. And I sent this for printing, and then it ended up on the front page of the New York Times. And there it was. I also have the coolest job the coolest job description in corporate America. My job description is this, is to enlighten minds, open hearts, create world peace. Thank you. That's all I do. I'm also a fellow philanthropist. I mean, I'm kind of a small-time philanthropist, not rich like you. So it started, can I make a joke about, okay, you might throw me out. So I'm a small-time, I'm not like a Rockefeller. I'm not even a stoner fella. I'm like grain of sand old fella. Okay, yes, careful there. It started, my journey as a philanthropist started when I joined this small company. And then one day, this company, in 2004, it went public. So the night before I went to sleep, I woke up in the morning, I was rich. So it turns out Mom was right. You get enough sleep, makes you healthy and wealthy. So I got enough sleep, I woke up, I was rich. And the difference between you and me is that I don't deserve the money. I mean, you guys work hard, you're smart, you make good decisions. I'm just lucky. I joined a startup and I became rich. So I decided the only way I can deserve the wealth is to do it retroactively. And to do it retroactively by giving most of my money away. So literally the very first thing that happened on IPO day, literally the very first thing I did with money was to give some of it away, tiny bit. I made a small donation, and the organization gave me a T-shirt. And then later on, when I had more money, I gave $1 million to this organization, Stanford Center for Compassion. And the reason, there are 2 reasons. The first reason was because this was a center that was the first center in a major university that was studying compassion as a scientific subject. This is very cool. And the Dalai Lama, at that time, give all his money away to this organization. So the Dalai Lama has his own money. I mean, he has Tibetan funds and he has his own money, his personal money. And the Dalai Lama give all of it, $150,000 to them. And I was like, His Holiness give all his money, I should give $1 million. Right? So I gave them $1 million and they give me a T-shirt. It was the most expensive T-shirt I ever got. I'm sure they give the Dalai Lama a T-shirt as well. When I became a philanthropist, I discovered 2 things about being a philanthropist, and I suspect is a fairly common experience. The first thing I found out is that I say no a lot. I spend a lot of time saying no to people. The second thing is, even when I say yes, I'm always thinking that I'm not doing enough. So I always feel that I'm letting somebody down all the time. Right? There is, however, and in addition to that, if you look at the bigger picture, there is a big picture problem, which is, first, a good thing. The good thing is that philanthropy, in my opinion, philanthropy is based on compassion. That's a good thing. There is one issue, which is compassion can very easily lead to compassion fatigue. Right? So how do you solve for that problem? In my opinion, the solution is to make compassion a joyful activity. If it's joyful, then you will not lead to fatigue. Question is, how? But first, before we talk about how, I want to show you an extreme example of what it looks like to to have compassion as a joyful activity. There's this guy, he is the happiest man in the world. And his name is Matthew Ricard. The guy who's not me, the other guy. Happiest man in the world. So the question, how do you get the title of happiest man in the world? Right. Turns out you can measure happiness in the brain. And if you measure happiness in the brain, if from a scale of like 0 being neutral and a positive number being unhappy, negative being happy, I don't know why. So on that scale, minus 0.3 is described as beatific. Beatific as in extremely happy. Matthew is minus 0.45. It's beyond the scale. So the very first time, by the way, Matthew was the very first person with 10,000 hours of meditation training who went into an fMRI to get his brain measured. He was meditating on compassion. We saw that spike in happiness and everything else. And the experimenters, they look at the data. They say there's only one conclusion from the data. Very obvious, which is there's something wrong with the machinery. So they took him out and said, sorry, Matthew, there's a problem with the machine. We need to recalibrate. So they took him out, they recalibrated and so on, put him back in, same result. And it turns out other monks with more than 10,000 hours of meditation training, same experience. I mean, same data. So it turns out that with enough training, you can make compassion a joyful activity. That's the first thing. And you can push it to extreme happiness. You can make compassion the happiest experience in the world, which is demonstrated by these guys. So how to do that? The way to do that, in my opinion, is to build compassion on the foundation of inner joy. In other words, the only way to sustain compassion is with inner joy. And inner joy here refers to the ability to bring up joy, which is independent of sense pleasure and ego pleasure. So sense pleasure we know. Ego pleasure are like, I'm good, right? People love me, right? I'm successful, right? That pleasure of ego. So there's a joy, or rather there's ability to bring up joy on demand, independent of this. And that ability sustains compassion. And compassion multiplies that joy. So that's a prerequisite. Question, how to do that? The way to sustain inner joy is with inner peace. This is the ability to bring the mind to a state that's calm and clear, and to do it on demand. Specifically, especially in times of crisis, right? Bad things are happening, everything's falling apart. You can calm the mind and think. If you have that ability, then when the mind is calm on demand, a joy arises naturally, independent of sense and ego. Then you have inner joy, and then you have compassion. So inner peace, inner joy, compassion. Question is, how? The way to do that is mindfulness. Mindfulness here is something fairly specific. It is defined as paying attention, but not just paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. Shall we try that out to see what it feels like? Okay? For 10 seconds, it's just 10 seconds, very fast. For 10 seconds, I'd like you to bring attention to the process of breathing, whatever that means to you. And then whenever attention wanders away, bring it back. Sounds good? 10 seconds begins now. Okay, thank you for your attention. That was 10 seconds. Was that good? So this is the point in my talk where Peggy asked for her money back. Because if I were doing this to an audience of engineers, the question they'll be asking is called a WTF question. WTF stands for what is happening? And the WTF question is, well, some people got a joke. The question is, how can this possibly do me any good? So wait. I bring attention to my breathing. It runs away, I bring it back. How can this possibly benefit me? Well, if you're, so to answer the question, let's use an analogy. The analogy is, imagine I just show you one bicep curl. If I do that, you should be asking the same question. So whoa. I take a heavy object, I move it up, I move it down. How can this possibly benefit me? If, however, you know about exercise, you know the answer. The answer is every time I do one of this thing strengthens a little bit more. So if I do a lot of this, I develop a quality called strength. Right? It's through training I develop strength. Same thing here. Every time the mind wanders away, I bring it back. Every time I bring it back, it's like doing one bicep curl for the mind. And specifically, you're strengthening the prefrontal cortex, part of the brain over here. And if you do a lot of this part becomes strong, and then you gain mastery over attention. So attention no longer masters over you. You master over attention. And through mastering over attention, you then develop the ability to calm the mind on demand, which is inner peace. And with that ability, you begin to develop inner joy, and with that, compassion. But wait, there's more. There's one intermediate step, which to me is a really important step, between inner joy and compassion. And the step is loving kindness, or kindness for short. So the question is, what is the difference? Sounds like the same thing. I'm going to give you the technical definition. Technically, kindness is defined as wishing for others to be happy. Compassion is defined as wishing for others to be free from suffering. Sounds the same. So what are differences? The first difference is that compassion necessarily involves motivation. Because if you want others to be free from suffering, you're motivated to do something. Kindness doesn't always involve motivation. So that's the first difference. The second difference is because of that, kindness is easier. And because it's easier, it's a gateway drug to compassion. So next question, how do you train kindness? By the way, I use the word train because all these are trainable qualities. How do you train kindness? Very easy. The way to do that is with a mental habit. So what's the mental habit of kindness? Mental habit of kindness is looking at a random human being. And the first thought, I wish for this person to be happy. Right? I wish for this person to be happy. That's the first thought that comes to mind. And it's the first thought, why? Because it is a habit. Imagine developing this habit. Habit becomes personality, personality becomes character, character becomes you. And therefore, by just developing a habit, it becomes you. You become a kind person. How to do that? Easy. How to develop a habit? You do something often enough, it becomes a habit. Simple as that. Right? So shall we do 10 seconds of the exercise? Okay, 10 seconds, very easy. This is a thinking exercise. So you randomly, quietly identify two human beings in this room. Don't need to point them out. And then you just think, I wish for this person to be happy, I wish for that person to be happy. Don't say it out loud. Don't do anything. You don't have to go like, right? I mean, don't have to do that. Just think for 10 seconds. Sounds good? Okay, begins now. Okay, thank you for your attention. Did you notice that you're smiling when you did that? Did you notice that when you were thinking, like wishing for other people to be happy, you yourself are happy? It's like, if that's true, you might have just found one of the secrets to happiness, which is all other things equal. All you do is think, I wish for that person to be happy. Then you become happier already. And that complements the inner joy and propels it into the joy of compassion. So, I'm going to tell you a small story. So this kindness thing is like not even compassion, just kindness alone. How far can you push the happiness of kindness? So I gave a talk a couple of months ago. I gave a talk at this place called Spirit Rock. And it was a Monday evening talk. So I gave a talk, and then we did this 10-second exercise. And then after that, I assigned homework. I said, okay, Today is Monday, tomorrow is Tuesday, it's a work day. When you go back to work, try this. Every hour, spend 10 seconds randomly thinking. People outside your office, I wait for this person to be happy, wait for that person to be happy. 10 seconds, go back to work, nothing changes. Right? And it's not embarrassing because you're just thinking, you're not saying out loud. So I said, try it out, see what happens. So that was Monday. Tuesday, somebody did that. Wednesday, I received an email from a total stranger. And this person says, she said, I went to your talk on Monday. I tried out the exercise on Tuesday. She said that I hate my job. I hate coming to work every single day. But I did the exercise on Tuesday for 80 seconds, 8 hours, once an hour, 80 seconds, for 80 seconds. And that was my happiest day in 7 years. So all it took is 80 seconds of thinking. Happiest day in 7 years. So I recommend we all try this out tomorrow, or even today. Sounds good? Okay. So this is it. To me, this is half of mindful philanthropy, which is using the training in inner joy and kindness, mindfulness and kindness, to create this chain of causality leading to joyful compassion. The other half is that this also, so you notice there are two components here. There is the inner component, mindfulness, inner peace, inner joy. And then there's the outer component, which is compassion, which necessarily involves motivation and action. And this also informs my philanthropy, which is that my work needs to involve an inner component and also an outer component. So what does that mean? Remember what my job description? Enlightened minds, open hearts, create world peace. Basically, my career goal is to create the conditions for world peace in my lifetime. Yeah, that's all. World peace in my lifetime. And so I put some thoughts into it. How do I do that? Oh yeah, I'm an engineer, so I'm always thinking how. Yes. How do I do that? I figured there are two necessary conditions for world peace. By itself, each of the two is necessary and insufficient, but combined, maybe they're necessary and insufficient. The first condition is what I call global action. Specifically, global action to do three things: to end poverty in the world, to end injustice in the world, and to end environmental destruction. Ending these three things. That will be, that will create the conditions for world peace. So how do I do this? My vehicle for this is a movement, not a bowel movement, a social movement, called 1 billion acts of peace. So what is 1 billion acts of peace? We are working together with 13 Nobel Peace Laureates. With 13 Nobel Peace Laureates, we're trying to inspire 1 billion acts of peace worldwide. This has to be a worldwide action in order to solve these big problems. Solve this problem worldwide in 5 years. That's what we're trying to do. In 5 years, mobilize the world, 1 billion acts, to begin to address poverty, injustice, environmental destruction. And for doing this, I'm very honored I'm also very humbled to tell you that we have been nominated 7 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah. So Father Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, nominated us, and he convinced 6 other Nobel laureates to do the same. The person who founded so I'm the co-chair of this. One of my other co-chairs, who's also the founder of this, her name is Dawn. She's sitting over there. Dawn, can you wave? Yeah. And so you see here, Dawn, you see with Father Tutu. And what Dawn is 2 models to tell you. So I'm going to tell you. She'll be very shy to say that. Dawn has been personally nominated 15 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. 2 of those times by Desmond Tutu. Yeah, she's very cool. So, okay. So if you have extra money, give to Don. And we announced it at the United Nations. I think it was a year back. Yeah. So the person, there was me sitting on Ban Ki-moon's chair. The person sitting next to me, she's a supermodel. Her name is Jessica Stam. So I know that some of you have spoken at the UN, but how many of you have done this with a supermodel? So for me, that's part one. The first pillar of creating conditions for world peace, global action. But that's not enough. There's a second piece, which I call global enlightenment. And I define global enlightenment as this. Oh yeah, okay, His Holiness says so, it must be true. His Holiness says world peace must develop from inner peace. And so for me, the second leg is global enlightenment, which to me means this, which means inner peace, inner joy, and compassion scale worldwide. Worldwide, if everybody in the world develops these qualities, together with ending poverty, injustice, and environmental destruction together, then I think we have the necessary and sufficient conditions for world peace in our lifetimes. That's what I'm trying to do. So the question is, how? How do we do this? Scale inner peace, inner joy, and compassion. I put some thoughts into this topic a couple of years ago, and I came up with the solution. I figured it out. And I figured out the way to do that is to align peace, joy, compassion with success and profits. Because if I were to go around the world talking about peace, joy, compassion, everybody go like yay, and then we all go home, nothing happens. However, if I were to go around the world and say, this is how I become more successful, this is how I earn more money, and the side effect of doing that is inner peace, inner joy, compassion, and world peace. So, yeah, sign me up, right? Because they want to be successful and they don't mind contributing to world peace. So that was my thinking. Question is, how? Right, the same question keeps getting harder and harder. And I figured it out. I figured the vehicle for doing that is emotional intelligence, EI. Because everybody knows EI is good for my career. It's good for my team. If my team has emotional intelligence, we're going to make more money. It's good for profits. But nobody knows how to train EI in adults. And as meditators, we know. Because we know how to train the mind. And we know how to train mind in ways which help people become successful through developing emotional intelligence and with inner peace, inner joy, and compassion being the necessary and unavoidable side effect. So I figured, that's it. That's the solution. So I led the creation in Google of a curriculum called Search Inside Yourself. Again, started as a joke, because we're a search company, we search inside ourselves. It became one of the most popular classes in Google. At one time, it was so popular, I mean, it still is, but one time it was so popular that when I opened the class, it fills up in 30 seconds. Not minutes, seconds. 30 seconds, class is full. So we expanded the class by 10-fold, 10 times more seats. So now it takes a whole hour to fill the class. But still very good. So I wrote a book about it. It's called Search Inside Yourself. It became an international bestseller. And after that, I want to go beyond that. So with Google's blessing, I set up an organization to bring this out to the world, but not just bring SIY out to the world. Also, the mission of this organization is every leader in the world is wise and compassionate, thereby creating the conditions for world peace. So wisdom and compassion, worldwide. The organization is called the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, and it's pronounced as silly. So where in doubt, get silly. Silly.org for those interested. So this is my plan for world peace. Basically what I just told you, the two pillars, right? global enlightenment, global action, and in between, something else, half a piece, which is creating the science around compassion and inner peace. And my idea is if we can understand those things scientifically, then maybe you know how to replicate it efficiently. Then we can replicate inner peace and compassion worldwide. So this is it, the whole plan. Can I close by telling a story? Okay, kind of a long story. This is a story, to me, it touched me, and it informs me as a philanthropist. And it's a story of this guy called Anatta Pintika. Anatta Pintika was a banker in ancient India. He lived during the lifetime of the Buddha. And let's see, how generous is he? He is so generous. So it turns out Anatta Pintika is not his name. Anatta Pintika literally means he who feeds the destitute, or he who feeds the poor. And people use that name so often that it became his name. Right? Nobody calls him by his real name, Sudatta. So imagine being so generous that everybody knows you as the guy who feeds the poor, that guy. And that becomes your name. So that's how generous he is. He is so generous. You heard the phrase, right? You can't give your way into poverty, right? Anatta Pintika did. He was so generous that eventually he became almost destitute. He was left with a bowl of sour gruel and a bowl of bird seed, according to the story. And he was still thinking, I'm not giving enough to people. So eventually he recovered his wealth. But that was how generous he is. He's always thinking of giving to others. So that guy, that generous guy, how rich was he? He was so rich that, according to the story, his living room always have enough seats for 500 people. Because every now and then he had 500 guests. He's always ready for 500 guests in his living room. So basically, this size of the living room. The other story was fascinating. So this is where he intersects with the Buddha's life story. Anatta Pintika was impressed with Buddha and wanted to build a monastery for him. And the plot of land he found, the only plot of land that Anatta Pintika was happy with, is owned by a prince called Prince Jeta. So Anatta Pintika wanted to buy the land, went to Prince Jeta, and Prince Jeta said, he refused to sell, but he didn't say, I'm not selling. He insulted Anatta Pintika. He said, if you can pave the entire park with gold, that would be the price. And Anatta Pintika said, deal. So according to the story, he paved the entire park with gold and paid that in the price for the land. And when that happened, the prince was shocked. And the prince says, you bought the land, but you didn't buy the trees. And the prince said, because I'm such a good, generous person, I will donate the trees. And therefore, the park was named Jetavana, named after the prince. So anyway, that's how rich Anatta Pintika was. So given that context, right, how rich he was, how generous he was, there was a short lecture given to him by the Buddha, which to me was like whoa, in that context. And so the Buddha gives this lecture. He says, Anatta Pintika, imagine somebody so generous that he gave away 84,000 pots of gold, 84,000 pots of silver, 84,000 cases of jewelry, 84,000 elephants, 84,000 chariots with lion skin, leopard skin, tiger skin, and so on and so forth. There's a whole list of things. And the Buddha says, imagine that much generosity, and better than that is one moment of loving kindness. And the way he put it is the amount of time, loving kindness, for the amount of time it takes to pull a cow's udder. And Buddha said, better than that is one moment of insight into impermanence. So what I got from there is that first, generosity is a wonderful thing. However, in addition to generosity, I have to also practice loving kindness. And in addition to loving kindness, I also had to practice wisdom. So that was what I took for myself. And I hope this talk has been helpful to you. I hope that, last slide. I hope that together we'll create the conditions for world peace in our lifetimes. Thank you.